this video, we talk about a credit strategy that has grown around the world. Some managers call it a credit arbitrage strategy, while others call it an absolute credit return strategy. But all it is basically shorting government bonds and using the proceeds to buy high-grade corporate bonds.
Let's use an example to clearly explain how a credit arbitrage strategy works. In this example, we'll have two bonds. We'll have a government bond that returns 1%, and we'll have a high-grade corporate bond that returns 3%. And in this example, we're going to have an investment manager that has $100 million. So let's say this investment manager uses the $100 million as collateral to short the government bonds. But instead of shorting $100 million in government bonds, that manager uses 3 times leverage and shorts $300 million in government bonds. Now, because that manager is shorting the government bonds, it has to pay the yield on the government bonds. At 1% times $300 million, that manager is going to have to pay out $3 million a year. But that manager has taken that $300 million proceeds that it got from shorting the government bonds and uses it to buy high-grade corporate bonds. And so it has $300 million in high-grade corporate bonds earning 3%, which is $300 million times 3%, $9 million. And so the manager is making $9 million from the corporate bonds and is paying out $3 million from shorting the government bonds. Now, that manager still has the $100 million in collateral. So let's make the assumption that that $100 million in collateral is earning 1%. And so the manager would be earning $9 million from the high-grade corporate bonds, would be paying $3 million from the government bonds, so 9 minus 3 is 6, plus would be making $1 million from the collateral. So it would be making $7 million. On $100 million, that's a 7% return. So the manager used a credit arbitrage strategy to short government bonds at 1%, long corporate bonds at 3%, and net out a 7% return. Are there risks to this strategy? Well, of course. Anytime we're seeking higher returns, we're probably going to take on more risks. In this case, we are levering up our high-grade corporate bonds. And so, if anything happens to these corporate bonds, such as default, well, there may be losses, dramatic losses, in this strategy.
In this video, we talked about a credit strategy that has grown around the world. Some managers call it a credit arbitrage strategy, while other managers call it an absolute credit return strategy. But all it is basically shorting government bonds and using the proceeds to buy high-grade corporate bonds. If you like this video and would like to see further videos on other strategies, please leave a comment below.